What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at Notorious KRO. With me once again, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Man, last week I got so close with William Byron, and then, of course, it's the one damn race that Brad Keselowski also tries to do a little bit better again. And then this week, what are we doing?
So we need to figure this out because there's obviously a lot to discuss. We are at Bristol, and you think, oh, good, Bristol, that's easy. You just look at the stats, look at all that. No, it's a dirt race, so all of the information pretty much goes out the window. I'm very curious to see how this goes. We got a little glimpse of what may be happening with the iRacing last night. I don't know if you caught it on FS1. I watched a little bit of it. Obviously, we'll have qualifying on Saturday, which, normally we know where everybody's starting. We can really dive into DraftKings pricing and know exactly, in terms of place differential, in terms of dominators, in terms of all that stuff. Yep. So we're going to give you some names we're looking at in terms of of drivers that we like potentially. Brian and we're going to try and come back on Saturday. So make sure you turn on that bell notification. Make sure you hit subscribe because we'll try and get that thing posted Saturday evening, maybe around 7:30 Eastern time. And then give you some names that we'll actually be targeting. Once qualifying's over, once we know everybody's starting, it'll give you a lot better understanding of kind of where we can, set our DraftKings lineups. But DraftKings pricing out. Betting lineups, betting lines are out. We're going to dive into all that. But before we get into anything, we really have to figure out how we're going to approach this race because we have, basically I did some preliminary research, dove into the Eldora, which is a dirt race in the truck series. And some of these guys have ran it. Some of these guys haven't. There's some interesting names that don't typically run in the NASCAR series. That are going to be a part of this race, as well as based on the betting boards, Vegas seems to favor a lot of the guys with the experience, not necessarily the homegrown names. So, Brian, what's your thoughts? Are you going to lean on? Because there's a few things. Obviously, the NASCAR guys with the well-funded teams are going to have a better car. But there's also no pitting, right? It's all the repairs, everything like that happens on the track. There's no pit stalls. And there's basically between each segment or each stage, there's going to be like a 3-minute window where they can go out to the track, fix the car, and then come back. So it's not like, you just drive it in and you fix the wheels and you do it all right there and you can save some time. Nope, it's not going to be like that. So it's going to be very interesting. If there's a pop tire during the race, they can only fix that one tire. They can't touch anything else. So it's not like you can have it. And if you blow a tire during the race, it's going to be bad news for you. But I mean, are you leaning? Where's your head at? Obviously, we're throwing darts in the dark here, but we have a few things to go off. Where are you going?
So I've seen a few articles where they were talking about the difficulties by sportsbooks in terms of kind of releasing these odds. And if you look at the numbers, you see Kyle Larson is the clear favorite here, not just because he has a history of performing well at these tracks, but also having a lot to do with the way he's been performing this season, I think. And, when you do look at it, the last time Larson ran at Eldora, for instance, was 2016. So that's 5 years ago. So I think even those stats are quite possibly a little bit overplayed, and it might be something to fade a little bit. And I'm actually looking at guys with more recent experience at Eldora.
The one thing I will say is he did run in some non-sanctioned events while he was suspended last year. So he definitely has a comfort. And, I'll throw up the betting odds so people can kind of get an idea of where the Vegas is at. He's a tremendous favorite, and plus 250 for a guy that obviously has been running well, and as somebody holding a 12-1 outright on him to win the NASCAR championship, I like seeing him doing well. But it does to me feel really aggressive because it feels like there's so much like open and potential. And as you mentioned, from, in terms of a truck series sanctioned event, it's been a while. I found a few guys, and obviously we'll hit on them from the DFS perspective as well, who have ran this race, who have, been, a somewhat comfort. Cause that's what I was trying to think. Like, is driving on dirt going to be like if we took Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo and told them to play soccer on ice? Like, could they? Is that kind of an adamant comparison, or is it obviously different? But these guys, it's going to be so weird because this isn't, you're not turning, you're drifting around each corner. And obviously a lot of these guys probably had experience on their, whether on the way up, but it's been long for, especially a lot of like the real OGs, the Truex, Logano. So, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to approach it.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I do think that that's an area where I think you can kind of fade some guys, and you see that it's very indicative of the odds this week. Guys like Logano, Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, they're not at the top where they normally are. I mean, look at Denny Hamlin; he's sitting there at plus 3,000. When's the last time you saw that? Or Kevin Harvick, 33-1. I mean, being that those guys haven't ran a dirt race or ran in the truck series or anything like that for, over a decade, I do think there is something there that it's going to be harder for them to adapt to this kind of race than some of the younger guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also wonder how these NASCAR cars are gonna run on the dirt tracks. Obviously, the trucks are a little different, sit a little higher, that kind of stuff. I think those big numbers are really saying, Vegas is saying, bet these guys, give us your money, because we don't think they have a shot to win.
Yeah.
And maybe you could look at some top threes, top fives, that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's some interesting names, especially at the top. Christopher Bell is a guy that I think is really, really interesting at 7-1. I think he has a ton of experience, including 2015, 2016, and 2017, a first, a second, and a 9th place finish in Eldora. So that's something to look forward to. I also think I think he's running well. I think he has a good combination of experience on the track and running in dirt races, but also the bigger sponsors that kind of follow suit and have the money to do the right things. One of the names that you may not recognize is Stuart Friesen, 16-1, a guy that I probably will be betting. This is a truck series guy that runs dirt races consistently. And he has run 4 races at Eldora. One, he crashed out and ended up finishing 28th. But 2017, he finished 2nd. 2018, he finished 3rd. 2019, he finished 1st. He's definitely an interesting name. And as we get into the DFS, I will mention him once again, because I think he is compelling this week, as well as Tyler Reddick at 20. I think he could make some sense. Obviously has success at Eldora, but he hasn't ran it since 2015. But was also a part of that iRacing thing on FS1 last night. So it's interesting to see where these odds shake out. Is there anyone garnering extra attention from you?
I mean, he's not even on the list, and this is just kind of going with his recent success this season, where we saw him end last year, a guy that I've talked about multiple times already this year, and that's William Byron, who he's sitting at 40-1 right now to win this race, and he won the iRacing event, and he's apparently won multiple times in iRacing events. Now, of course, that doesn't translate 100% to actual driving, in real life, but
right. But iRacing's a hell of a lot closer than like us playing with our Xbox controller.
Exactly. And too, on that note, he was like more than a second and a half, 2 seconds ahead of everyone else who was also racing in this iRacing event. And these guys have like multi-$1,000 rigs set up that are basically exactly like their cars. So, I mean, I think there is something to read into that. Like maybe he got a little bit familiar with when you're supposed to get into the turns or something, and he can kind of take that into practice and qualifying.
For sure. And I think, and they even mentioned it when they were interviewing him during the race, how throughout the race, the track is kind of changing, and you have to be able to adjust and kind of, go with the flow, and you can't just expect it to be the same the whole way. So that will be really compelling. But yeah, William Byron was a name that stood out a lot to me, and I will probably be betting as well. I think this. We talk about it so much where each week there's really a couple guys that can win, and then it's all about placement points. I think this one is wide open. And if you like William Byron, if you like some of the longer odds, I would get in early, because if qualifying opens up some eyes and things happen, and all of a sudden William Byron's 20-1, 25-1, even maybe even shorter if he runs really well, you could gain a lot of value that way. Some of the other names that may be shorter, maybe Chase Briscoe, Austin Dillon. I can't imagine a world where they get crazy shorter. Maybe Dillon goes from 12 to 10 or 9.
I was just gonna say right inside that top.
Yeah. So like, I don't necessarily, like, if you like him, you can jump all over it. But some of those names I might be a little more interested in.
I think this week, though, too, on the betting side, is one of those weeks where there is a lot of money to be had in those top 10s. I mean, you're looking at only the top 4 guys right now are negative money, and then everyone after that is plus money betting for a top 10, which is not something you ever see.
Yeah. Ryan Newman is one of those guys that stands out for me in the top 10 market. He is almost plus 250, plus 245 right now. And he has experience. He ran in 2018. He ran in 2013. 2013 he finished much better, and 2018 didn't go very well. But I think that experience, that comfort level on this track, I think is going to be interesting. And you're not asking him to win the race. You're not even asking for a top 5. You're saying, give me a top 10. And it's basically 2.5 to 1. I love that.
Yeah, this will be a race where I'll have a ton of top 10 bets, even if I'm like losing some money because I'm going over 10 guys bet. I think it's a good shot to make a lot of money there.
Yeah, because if you hit 4, 5, 6 of them, you could do really well. And shouts to the guy on YouTube. I forget who it was, but mentioning like betting drivers to not finish in the top 5, to not finish in the top 10.
Yes.
I think that could be really interesting with drivers like Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Martin Truex. Their numbers might be a little bit higher than they probably should be, given their not a lot of history on these tracks. So I think that could be an interesting way, is say he won't finish top 10. He won't finish top 10, and see if you can hit a couple. I bet you can get some nice value on a few of those.
Yeah, so let's just call him out. That's Yellow Dart 24. That was an amazing insight there by him.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about attacking it from that angle, but I think that makes sense, especially as the season rolls along. If we know at driver X, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano doesn't typically run well at a track, but because of name value, they have to inflate their odds.
Yeah,
we might be able to find some value and attack it that way. So let's switch over. Let's talk some DFS. Brian, like I said, Brian and I are trying to come back on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern, to give you some of our thoughts for DraftKings once everything's kind of finalized from qualifying. But we're going to give you some names we're going to target. Brian's got some names that I'm interested in as well. And then, so we'll see if there's some crossover there as well. But Brian, let's throw up your names. So we'll start with Chase Briscoe at 9,900. I think, one of the more expensive drivers, but I think could be a wise way to kind of start some lineups.
Yeah, I was looking at Briscoe because, going back to his Eldora history, he has really good success there. He has 3 straight top 10s there, 17, 18, and 19. You're looking at a guy who he is let me see here, 1, 2, 3, fourth most expensive driver on the slate. And when you go to the odds, he's the 4th best odds to win the race as well. So, I like this guy based on his price point of less than 10K and his history at dirt tracks, as well as the way he's been running this year for, a really young guy. He's not have the best finishes, but he's finishing right around the middle of the pack at around 20th. And I think this is a race where guys like him who have a little more recent experience can, push into that top 10 range. And then
Yeah.
Austin Dillon, he's a guy with past success at Eldora. He actually won a race here on the dirt at Bristol this past weekend. It was a 20 lap exhibition race. So he got really good experience in learning his car and kind of how he wants to attack this race. So I think that's going to pay tremendous dividends for him. And this is a guy, he's consistently running near the top 10 all year. And then William Byron, like we said, I think him being priced at 7,100, I said this a couple of weeks ago, I still think he's undervalued in the DK market as well as just betting in general. I mean, he has 4 straight top 10s in 2021. I know that that's not the same as riding on dirt, but he won the iRacing event. So I do think that will help him learn how to race here a little bit better. And then I went Ross Chastain because he's only 5,300. And looking back at the last race in 2019 on this dirt in the Truck Series, Chastain finished 12th. So I think that's a good indicator. He's okay on dirt, and he's finishing again the same thing. He's kind of right around the middle of the pack, so he's not finishing in the back third of the racers. So I think he has a good shot of finishing top 15, top 10 here.
Yeah, and at 5,300, he makes a lot of lineups work, especially if you.
And then you can pay up for the top guys if you want, right. Christian Bell or Kyle Larson.
Yeah, and Kyle Larson's interesting, incredibly expensive. I think if you want, I'm wondering I wonder if Kyle Larson's going to be popular because he's, especially compared to his betting market, he's so much so much closer to the other guys, or if he's going to be so hard to get to. But I feel like fading him might be a move in the GPPs, especially, and kind of hope he crashes out or it just doesn't run well, and then you can cash some nice lineups there. So I'll start. I am going Christopher Bell, 11,000. That's where I'm going to start this week. I don't know if I'll be able to get to Larson, but there is with Ross Chastain, there is some value. Stuart Frierson is going to be Friesen. I think I want to keep wanting to call him Frierson for some reason. I don't know why. Stuart Friesen, 9,500 makes a ton of sense. Runs, a lot of comfort with these races, and with his betting market being 16-1, I think that makes ton of sense. Bubba Wallace is a name that I'm going to get to at 85. Has some history on the dirt. Obviously hasn't run in the Truck Series in a while, but 2013, 2014, a 7th and a 1st. So, has some sense. And I'm right there with you at William Byron. I think he's underpriced. Obviously, we'll have to see where he finishes. If he can finish near the front at 7,100, if he can have the Dominator, I think that could make some sense. Other than, we'll see. And then, we'll have to kind of play it by ear. And, Brian, like I said, Brian and I will be back. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, all that good stuff. Briscoe is a name that I'm going to get to.
I also kind of think Ty Dillon is interesting because both Ty Dillon and Austin Dillon, I guess, hearing this past weekend, they both kind of grew up racing on dirt. So Ty Dillon is another guy who's extremely cheap. I think he's 6,600. Who he's only ran a few races this year, but if he has that kind of experience on dirt tracks, that could be huge in terms of a race like this.
Yeah, and while he hasn't had a ton of quote unquote NASCAR experience or NASCAR success, rather, he's also comfortable driving with those guys, and he's been there before. It's not like he's getting called up for a one-shot deal. So he's been around these guys, so it might be a little more comfortable. I like that call. I also like Tyler Reddick. I think he could make some sense. He was another guy that ran really well in the iRacing. We'll have to see where he kind of pans out with some of the pre stuff, but I think he could make some success, some sense as well, and have some success. There we go.
Yeah, and I do think some of this may kind of be up for change, especially going into qualifying, because if all 4 of our core guys are qualified, in the back half of the field, obviously we can't fill that. But I mean, that goes into Kyle Larson as well. I mean, if he goes into qualifying and say he misses a turn or something, and then he qualifies 20th, I think he'll be in a ton of lineups just knowing how good he is here and with all
Yeah.
the movement points.
Yeah, and there's gonna be 250 laps, so it'll be those lap leaders, that fast lap, those will be really important. Yeah, I think obviously qualifying is going to make a ton of impact on who our core ends up being. But these are just names that make sense, that run well, and based upon their betting odds and based upon their DK prices, could provide some value. So Brian and I are on board. So Brian, we talked DFS, we talked betting. That's one thing left to do. What's your best bet for the Food City Dirt Race?
He's not even listed on there. I gotta go William Byron top 10 at 2-1. Yeah. I'm getting 2-1 on a top 10 on a top 10 driver. Yes, give me that all day, every day. That's one of my favorite bets of the year so far.
I love it. I'm actually looking up something right now. So give me William Byron is plus 550 to finish in the top 5.
I mean, even that's crazy.
What am I missing? So I like that. I like William Byron. If you want to go 5, if you want to go top 10, and if you like that, I would bet that sooner than later. I will be betting Stuart Frierson at 16-1 to win the whole dang thing. And a guy we didn't really mention, but Ryan Blaney at 22 at plus 650 for a top 3. I think he makes some sense as well. A guy that has some history running on dirt, ran in Eldora 2013 and 2014, also running really finding his footing in NASCAR, obviously coming off the win. So things are looking up. Obviously, I was a week early on Blaney. Remember, I liked him and Logano, and then they both didn't finish, and then the next week he wins. But I did have two. I had Kyle Larson top 3, and that ended up coming through. So that was a nice last week, kind of helped salvage. And obviously
the Kurt Busch crash killed my DK lineup. Yeah. If it wasn't for that, I would have cashed again.
Yeah, I cashed a little bit. In DK, I hit that. Truex didn't come through, but that's okay. Obviously, with March Madness Sweet 16 this weekend, we'll have a lot of attention there, and yes, probably allocate a lot of funds over there. So
especially for me on Sunday,
I don't know how aggressive I'm going to get, but yeah, I will definitely dabble. Blaney, Tyler Reddick, William Byron, and then Stuart Frierson outright. I think that's going to be my card. I will tweet all of that out at Notorious KR. Oh, it switched on us. I don't like that. So yeah, so make sure you're following us at Notorious KRO, at Greasy Rules 14. Like I said, make sure you subscribe and turn on bell notifications so you know when our DraftKings video hits the old airwaves. With now that we have actual qualifying. I think next week they go back to the normal schedule based off of points. So we'll have more info next week. But
yep.
For Brian Twining, I am Kyle Robert. We'll talk to y'all next time.